Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stellar and today I'll be teaching you about changing properties of an object. And in the previous tutorials we've talked about types, printing, and all.jazz, and also variables. And in this video we're actually going to talk about how to change properties of an object, like for example the base plate. Like we're going to change the color, for example, but not through here, but through a script. So the first thing I want to talk about is finding an object in the game through a script. So in the previous tutorial we've talked about variables, right? So you can say local x is 10, local y is 4 or 5, I mean. Yeah, so we're gonna do kind of the same thing. So we want to get the base plate, for example. Let's say we want to get the base plate. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a variable, local base plate. I'm going to say this equals to game, and game, this refers to the parent of workspace and the parent of players and the parent of lighting. Basically it's a higher up object that we cannot see in the Explorer. So if we want to get the workspace, what we do is we say dot and we say workspace. So now we are referring to workspace, and you might guess how we can get the base plate, and that is simply by doing dot baseplate. So now we have the base plate object and we are storing it inside this variable. Right, so now we have the base plate. So we can do the same kind of concept with any other object. So let's say we have something in the server storage that is, I don't know, like a folder or something, and we have another folder, and let's say we have inside an atmosphere. So we can also get the atmosphere through a script, and that's by doing local, and then you can call it anything. I'm just saying atmosphere because it's understandable, but you can say, you can put this to anything, like we can also put it to X. But basically you want to get atmosphere, so first we have to get to server storage. So we do that by doing game of server storage, and then you get to the folder, this one, folder, and then we have to get from this one to this one, that's folder, and then dot atmosphere. So now we got the atmosphere. Yeah, so that's cool and all, but let's remove this, we don't need that. And yeah, okay, so we want to keep the base plate. Okay, there are some problems with doing dots. Like, for example, let's say we have multiple parts that are called base plate. So the thing with this is it's gonna choose a random one between these two, but we don't want that. We want it to choose the one and only base plate, right? So for now there's not much you can do about this, but if you want to prevent that somehow, you can put a 2 after this and it'll take this one. But other than that, there's no way right now we can prevent that. Also, if you ever need to find an object that has a space in it, or it has a number as the first character of its name, it's quite different. So if you try to do local base plate second equals game.workspace.second baseplate, as you can see, that is not gonna work. So what you do in order to get the second baseplate is you use square brackets, a string, and then you put in the name of it, so second baseplate, and then you have it. This also applies for objects with a space in its name. So baseplate small equals game.workspace square bracket string small baseplate. So yeah, that's that. Okay, but now let's actually start changing properties of this baseplate. So yeah, first we gotta think, what do we want to change? So let's look through the properties and see if we see something we want to change. For example, the size. So let's say baseplate dot size. So now we're gonna say baseplate dot size. So this is referring to this property right here, and then we're gonna say equals, and then we gotta put a value here. So if you may remember, there were some values let's go to the part. This is the object browser, by the way. So if you go to view, you have something called object browser. And for now, just have this always enabled during my tutorials, because I'm gonna refer to this page a lot. So if you scroll down or press P on your keyboard, you will go to part. And that is what the base plate is, right? It's a part. And here you can see the class name part. So you have these purple ones, you have these blue ones, and the blue ones, they are the properties. And if we go to size, we see the name of the property, and we see what kind of value it is. So you remember vector3, it was a value with 3 numbers, and you make it by doing .new. All right, so let's say we want to make the size. We can experiment beforehand before actually setting the size. So let's say we want to make it 200 by 16 by 200. So it's going to be looking like that. All right, so let's put it back and say 200, 16, 200. So now when we run the game, it should make it smaller. So let's test that out. And as you can see, it did it. So our script is working. But what else can we do with this? We can also change the color, like color equals color dots, and we can choose .new, for example. I like to choose through the color wheel right here instead of doing with numbers. So let's say we make it this color, making for you, and then when we run the game, it makes it purple. So yeah, that's really cool now. Yeah, we can change more stuff, like we can even change the parent. And if you want to know what value the parent takes, it's an object itself. So you might be thinking like, oh, so if I can just change the parent to a different object, right? And yeah, you're correct if you think that. So let's say we have another object here, local, let's say server storage is game.server storage. So we can say, since this is an object, we can say parent equals server storage. And whenever we do that, it should do this. So we shouldn't be able to see it anymore. Let's try it out. And as you can see, that works. So yeah, that's really great. So we can basically make, well, we cannot make a game yet, but you know, this is kind of the idea behind games. They're like, for example, if you're trying to load a map, what they do, they take the map from server storage and they put it in the workspace whenever they need to. That's kind of the idea behind it. Okay, so apart from changing properties, I want to also show you how to create objects. So let's remove this. And let's say we want to make a part. So what we do is local new part, for example, and we say equals instance.new. And then we put the class inside of it. So the class is what the object is. So in our case, a part. So now we can say new part dot color is color3 dot new. We could say it's green, and we can say new part dot anchored equals true. And also a little trick here: if you're not sure what value it wants, and you're too lazy to go to the object browser, you can simply scrolling down here, and you can see example massless. It says here it needs a boolean, so true or false, right? Let's go to the size, vector3, and it even shows you a little example here, and that's really nice. It might be a little bit too complicated, but you know, if you can understand it, then that's great. So size equals vector3, not version, vector3 dot new, 10 by 10 by 10, for example. We can even change the name, dot name, and then here it says it's a string. So nice part, for example. Now, okay, so this should make a part, right? And it should be in the game, and we should be able to see it, right? Well, here's the problem. Where's the part? Oh, it's not here. It's not in the workspace. I don't see the nice part. It's not in the replicated storage, server storage. It's nowhere to be seen. And the reason that we cannot see it is because we need to parent it. We need to change the parent to the workspace in our case. So it's really easy. Just say new part, the parent needs an instance, which is an object. We can say game.workspace. And if you, and there's actually an easier way of referring to workspace. That's just by doing workspace. There's no real difference, but I like to do workspace a lot because it looks a little bit nicer and it's a shorter alternative. So that should make our part, right? And as you can see, it did. It's in the center of the map. And yeah, that's our part. Nice part. Yeah, so that's how you create an object. So now I want to talk about something a lot of beginners make when changing properties. Okay, so we've learned about variables, we've learned about finding objects and changing them. So you might be thinking like, oh, well, this is like, I'm repeating myself all over and over again. Can't I just do, well, that's a really bad example, but like, let's say we're changing the color like multiple times for some reason. Let's make like a small difference. Okay, so we're kind of changing the color repeatedly, right? So you might be thinking like, oh, well, can't I make that shorter by just doing local color is new part dot color and changing this to color? And you might be thinking like, oh, well, this makes it a little shorter, so that's good, right? Well, what's really happening here is we made a variable here. We're saying it equals to the color of the part. So essentially, this variable is equal to, let's see, color 3 from RGB. This, right? And that's correct. But you may know from the previous video that when we're saying a variable equals and then another value, we're just changing the variable. It's not actually changing new part.color, it's just changing the variable. And to prove that, okay, so let's just see what the final color should be. It's supposed to be green, right? And the initial color should be gray. So let's see what the color will be when we run the game. And as you can see, it's gray and it's not green. And yeah, you might be thinking like, well, isn't it supposed to be green? Because we're referring to the part's color and we're setting it to green, right? Well, once again, you're just changing the variable. So if you want it to be a different color, you have to do new part.color. And only then it will change the property. And as you can see, it will. So do not make the mistake of making variables to properties, okay? You can make it to objects, but do not make it for properties, because essentially you're just storing the value, right? That's not what you want to do. So yeah, that's a common mistake covered. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about in this video. Maybe a little example. So you may know how you can like make parts, right? You can make parts like this, and in Studio you can group them by selecting all of them and group as model, right? There is no easy way of doing that within a script other than just making a model by doing equals instance.model. So we're creating we're just creating a model, but it doesn't have anything yet. So first we're gonna get the parts we wanna include in the model. So let's just actually ungroup this, call it part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. Okay, so let's refer to these objects within the script. So local part 1 is workspace.part1, not parent, part 1. And let's repeat this for every part. 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, now we got the object. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the parent of each part to the model, because that's what our model is, right? The parts are parented to the model. So we're gonna do that. So part 1, parent is model. Part 2, parent is model. So on, so on, so on. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the final thing we got to do is parent this model to workspace, right? So model parent is workspace. So now we should get a model when running the game. There you go. There it is. We just created our own model type mechanic, right? Yeah, so that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. In the next video, we're going to talk about if statements, or so-called conditional statements, I believe. It's about checking conditions like if 1 + 1 = 2, then do this, stuff like that. It's really simple. It could be hard, but overall the idea is pretty simple among beginners. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.